Good morning. Happy fourth day of October. We're glad to have you joining us this morning. We're going to start out with some late breaking news. You might have seen it yesterday or you might not have. And I'm proud to announce today that for the seventh consecutive year, Hilton Head Island was named the #1 island in the U.S. by readers of Condé Nast Traveler. That's 7 years in a row as #1. And that's a pretty big honor. And thanks to so many who have helped make that happen. Also proud to announce that the Savannah Hilton Head International Airport was also named the #1 airport in the country for the third straight year. How about that? A great island destination and a great airport to get there. Two big winners with Condé Nast Travelers. Let's talk about a few more of those. The success continues. How about kudos to Montage Palmetto Bluff for their ranking as the #1 resort in the Southeast and number 14 on the best resorts in the world. Pretty fantastic. Also, we have the Sea Pines Resort, the Omni Oceanfront Resort, Palmetto Dunes Resort, also took top honors among the best resorts in the South. So think about that. We're competing not only locally, regionally, nationally, but also globally. And these awards certainly stick out and show what a fine destination that the Hilton Head Island region is. Well, in order to keep that like we want, #1, great for our residents, great for our visitors, it's the conversation continues about workforce. It's about workforce, and workforce housing remains a hot topic, and we know it will continue to be a hot topic. You know, there are several projects offering solutions, both privately funded and public-private partnerships. Just last night, the town of Hilton Head Island voted to approve the text amendment to the LMO. What does that do? Well, now that clears the way for a privately funded workforce housing development project on the island's south end. You know, there's also another creative project proposed by a new nonprofit organization that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So no better time than now. Let's dive right in. And who better to enlighten us than a key figure behind one of these projects? Joining us today is Ben Brown. Ben currently serves as the Senior Advisor to Town Manager Mark Orlando on the Northpoint Housing Project. Ben has a rich background in community development with extensive experience in planning and project management. Ben is here to share his insights on the Northpoint Workforce Housing Project and the recent bid award. Ben, that's a lot. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to your information you're going to share with us today.
Good morning, Bill. And I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to talk about the town's first public-private partnership to develop a sustainable, energy-efficient community on Hilton Head Island. From my perspective, this is a generational project that will not only provide a best-in-class workforce neighborhood on Hilton Head, but we're also providing housing for the future leaders of Hilton Head Island. And like many of the viewers, my wife, Suzanne, and I, we started our careers on Hilton Head over 20 years ago. At the time, we were able to rent a nice apartment. We were able to buy our first home on Hilton Head. And as we all know, that's becoming increasingly challenging to do on Hilton Head. And it's very challenging to do throughout the region. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about the Northpoint site. I'm going to talk about our selection process to select a preferred development partner. I'm also going to discuss project goals as well as the next steps towards project completion. I'm sharing my screen here. The property is located just west of the U.S. Post Office, the north part of the island, just south of Marsh Point Apartments, just east of Jarvis Creek, and of course on William Hill Parkway. This is about 11-acre property. The town acquired the property from the South Carolina Department of Transportation in 2002. And at the time, the town paid a little bit over $400,000 in cash, as well as the town completed over $900,000 worth of infrastructure work within the William Hilton Parkway right of way. So all in, the property was acquired for a little under $1.4 million. And the property is in a very good location. It's close to the Hilton Head schools. It's within 2 miles of the schools. It's within 2 miles of the Island Rec Center. And there's also some infrastructure already in place on the property. There's the existing roadway network. There's some drainage infrastructure. And this really makes it an ideal property to redevelop for housing based on its location and based on the existing infrastructure in place. Now, going back last year, after a series of housing workshops, the town manager was given the direction as well as the support of town council to find a development partner that had experience in financing, in design, in marketing, and construction, as well as property management to bring a best-in-class community to Hilton Head Island. So the first thing Mark Orlando, our town manager, did is he had put out an RFQ just to let the community know, let the United States know that we are looking for a development partner. And we're looking for the most qualified partner to work with the town of Hilton Head. We received 10 proposals from across the country of 10 firms that were interested in working with the town. And then in June, it was June 21st. I remember the date because my first day back with the town was June 20th. But on June 21st, the town council through resolution created the Northpoint Public-Private Partnership Housing Advisory Committee. And the committee was put in place to help the town manager select the right development partner. And we have spent a lot of time working with the committee, working with town council, but in preparation for our first committee meeting, town staff and I, we reached out to the local industry experts, as well as the Charleston Housing Authority, the Athens Housing Authority, the Martha's Vineyard Housing Trust, the Beaufort Housing Authority, the South Carolina Housing Authority. But we reached out to as many industry experts as possible to help us understand the best process for selecting a development partner, as well as the best framework to serve the town of Hilton Head. During this process, we also studied the local wages on the island, and we compared them to the area median income for Beaufort County. Nicte Barrientos in our community planning department, Nicte is an economic development planner. She started her career on Hilton Head last year. She grew up on the island, and she began calling local employers and asking what the wages were. And then we compared that to the Beaufort County AMI to really help calibrate what island wages are to better understand the island's essential workforce. What we found was that the majority of the essential workforce wages that we're really struggling with on the island fall between about 60% of the AMI and about 120% of the AMI. And as we further studied it and we looked at 2 household earners, it started pushing it even higher than 120, or we started seeing 130, 140, up to 150 if we're looking at nurses, firefighters, and other essential workforce. But that really helped give us a baseline as we began interviewing development partners, working closely with the Housing Advisory Committee, which includes 3 members of town council, Councilman Ames, Councilman Brown, Councilman Stanford, as well as 3 community leaders, Kumar Viswanathan, Tom Lennox, Scott Weirman. We work very closely, Mark Orlando and I work very closely with the Housing Advisory Committee to vet the firms that were interested in partnering with us on the island. And what we ended up doing is we invited 7 of the firms to submit full development proposals. And then to our delight, all 7 firms submitted development proposals. Then we began interviewing the 7 firms, and we looked at things along the lines of former developments, company culture, ability to understand sustainable design practices, as well as understanding Hilton Head's unique workforce and housing challenges. And we went through this interview process and we learned a lot about the development firms. They learned a lot about us. And ultimately we selected One Street Residential, an Atlanta-based firm as our preferred development partner. And Mayor Perry and Mark Orlando announced this last week. And what that means is that One Street Residential is our finalist. We are now working with One Street in good faith to prepare a framework and implement a workforce housing neighborhood at Northpoint. And through the selection process, we invited One Street to visit Hilton Head. They came to Hilton Head several times. We toured the island with One Street, with town staff, as well as with the Housing Advisory Committee. We visited the Island Rec. We visited the Boys and Girls Club. We visited Sea Pines as Palmetto Village. We also visited the Northpoint site, and we really got an opportunity to get to know each other better, and for our possible development partner to understand that not only does design matter on Hilton Head, but the people matter on Hilton Head. And to really understand who we are as a community, they needed to better understand places like the Island Rec and the Boys and Girls Club. And I'm pleased to say that we also, the Housing Advisory Committee and I also had the opportunity to visit Atlanta and look at communities that were developed and that are managed by One Street. We were impressed with the company's culture. We were impressed with the quality of their build, their attention to detail, but we were also impressed with their property management team. They genuinely care about their residents, and they also care about their staff. But I want to share a few of the goals of the Northpoint community. We are envisioning an energy efficient, sustainable neighborhood, solar components, community garden, community building, high-speed internet, outdoor space, amenities, walking trails, playground, fitness stations. We are envisioning a best-in-class, award-winning community that represents who we are on Hilton Head. We will likely have between 150 and 170 multifamily apartment units. We don't know the exact number of units until we take a deep dive into the site planning. Ultimately, the capacity of the site will determine the number of units. We'll look at parking, the size, shape, and topography of the site, the natural resources, but we want a land plan that really represents who we are as a community and has really nice neighborhood scale. 80% AMI, at least 50% of the units will be under 80% of the AMI. And as I talked about, that 60 to 80%, as well as 50% of the units will be above 80% AMI. There will be a cap. We don't know exactly what that is now. I suspect the bulk of the units will be between 60% and 120%. We may be able to go up to as high as 150% AMI. What we're learning through a lot of our preliminary pro formas is that if we go higher, we can go lower. And the goal is to have a mixed income neighborhood that can ultimately serve as many of our essential workforce as possible. We're envisioning caregivers, teachers, medical professionals, service providers, first responders. What's very important for the community to understand is that to live in Northpoint, you have to work on Hilton Head Island. This is to serve Hilton Head Island's essential workforce. What are our next steps? Well, One Street is in the process of completing site due diligence, better understanding the existing infrastructure on the site. We're doing preliminary site planning, engineering, architectural renderings to really understand the size and scale of the proposed development. We're defining the town responsibilities as well as the developer's responsibilities in the development agreement. The town is anticipating contributing the land. This isn't gifting the land, but this is through a long-term land lease. The town is also anticipating $1 million worth of ARPA funding. This was American Rescue Plan money that the town received from the federal government through COVID stimulus, which is earmarked to go towards a Northpoint project. The town will be very involved in the zoning entitlements to make sure that the density, size, and scale of the development is correct. We'll provide design support, programming support. The ultimate residents of the community will ultimately determine the success of the community. So we're envisioning really good programming. This could be after school programs, economic empowerment programs. The development partner is going to bring in a skilled design team. They're also bringing in financing, permitting, construction, as well as long-term property management. And ultimately, our goal, the town manager, Mark Orlando, and I, our goal is to bring forward to town council a development agreement within the next 3 months. And the goal would be for ultimately the town council to be able to execute this development agreement within the first quarter of 2024. And then we will have our final design, our permitting. That process generally takes about 6 to 9 months. Then we'll have a shovel-ready development. And we are anticipating about an 18-month build for a project of this scale. Ultimately, we would really like to release an initial phase after about 12 months. And with that in mind, I'm very excited about this project. This is, as I mentioned, a generational opportunity. And I would really like to thank the Hilton Head community for your continued support. We are preparing a project framework that will likely serve the Southeast as well as possibly future workforce housing developments throughout the country. And I'm happy to answer any questions, Bill. Thank you.
All right, Ben, there we go. Thank you for that very, very informative presentation. We're delighted to hear such exciting news this morning. We have a few questions for you if you have some time.
Sure.
Our first one's coming from Ed, and Ed is saying it's a great location, and then asking, would it negatively affect and impact future connectivity of the Cross Island Parkway and the proposed new bridge system?
The connectivity, thank you, Ed. The connectivity has been a thought of ours since conception. We're in the process of working with the U.S. Postal Service. We'd like to have direct connectivity to Gumtree Road through the front of the post office. And because currently when you leave the Northpoint site, it's only right only, west only to leave the property. And that will improve connectivity to Gumtree, and ultimately it'll create better safe connectivity to the school complex as well as to Island Rec. So this is certainly on our radar, and it's an important component of the project.
All right, thank you. Linda is asking, how many units, how many bedrooms, bath per unit, and then how many people are you planning on for this location to house?
Yeah, great question. And these will all be identified in the development agreement. We're envisioning between 150 and 170 units. We didn't come into this with a preconceived idea that we would have 14 or 15 units per acre. Ultimately, the site plan will define the capacity, parking will define the capacity, but ultimately we're envisioning between 150 and 170 units. That'll be a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms with a combination of bathrooms. And we will determine this throughout the next few months, but I'm envisioning housing probably at least 400 island workers.
All right, Ben, thank you. The next one's coming from Jane, and Jane is asking, what's in place to ensure the project doesn't clear cut the trees?
Yeah, great question, Jane. We early on, just to take a step back, when I became involved in this project in late June and into July, and we started doing our due diligence, our first exercise is we did a site analysis where we surveyed all the existing trees. We identified all the significant trees, all the specimen trees. I walked the site as well as our natural resources planner walked the site. And we identified the trees that cannot be disturbed during the site planning process. We shared that with all the bidders. So as we move into this next phase with our preferred development partner, we will protect the trees. The trees will not be clear cut on the property. I can assure the community of that.
All right, thank you. Thomas is asking, what does best in class mean to workforce housing?
Yeah, great question. We are Hilton Head Island. We want to do this better than anyone else has done this before. Through our preliminary research, talking with the various housing authorities, talking with unique communities like Martha's Vineyard, and talking with 10 and then 7 qualified housing developers throughout the country, what we have found is there are programs throughout the country that target to essentially low income. Then there's market rate housing throughout the country. But we're targeting to essentially what I've learned to be called the missing middle, that 60 to 120% of the AMI. And we're also trying to put together a unique financing structure, which I'm confident we will, or else we wouldn't have announced our partnership. But best in class to us is outstanding architecture, our outstanding finishes. And when we toured the One Street properties in Atlanta, what we found is they're able to bring high quality construction, high quality amenities, and high quality property management to the market for affordable rates. That's what we are going to do here in Hilton Head. That's best in class architecture, best in class property management, and a best in class financial structure that I'm really excited to share as we get farther into the negotiations of the development agreement.
Thank you, Ben. We continue to have great questions coming in from our listeners. And our next one's coming from Todd. And Todd is asking, how long will it be required to be workforce housing?
Todd, that is an excellent question because the answer is forever. The town owns the property. The town will continue to own the property. That's what we're envisioning. And through a long-term land lease, we can partner with a development partner, but we can also put covenants on the property to maintain a workforce neighborhood forever. But to also put various clawbacks and restrictions in place, we know that Palmetto Dunes, Sea Pines, these are communities that are over 50 years old that are having to spend significant money on redevelopment. As we put together our development agreement, we'll make sure that there's adequate reserves set aside for future repair and maintenance. So ultimately, we can have a best-in-class workforce neighborhood at Northpoint forever.
All right, very good. Next question is coming from Bob, and Bob is asking, with all of the essential workers in need for affordable housing, what will be the selection and prioritization process?
First and foremost, you have to work on Hilton Head. You either have to work on Hilton Head or you will have to be accepting employment on Hilton Head. That's the goal. There are also income requirements. You have to meet certain income thresholds to qualify for the affordable workforce housing. We are also going to work on other tenant qualifications through the development agreement process, through the negotiating process. Things we'll have to determine, for example, it is not the intent for someone to necessarily live at Northpoint forever. Hopefully, like many of us, they progress in their careers. So there will be a transition process once a individual or family begin to out-earn the community, a transition process so that they can move on to another phase of housing on Hilton Head Island. And that will all those tenant qualifications will be negotiated and defined in the development agreement.
Ben, this is extremely informative. We continue having lots of questions come in. We only have time for one more. And the last question that we have is coming from Raymond. And Raymond is asking, if the town owns the property, are taxpayers on the hook for future maintenance, new roofs, sidewalks, etc.?
No. This is going to be an energy efficient and sustainable community. But we're also going to have several legal provisions built into the development agreement. Ultimately, the selected development partner, who's likely One Street, as they're our finalists, will be responsible for the property management, and they'll be responsible for any of the associated maintenance costs. This isn't a public project. This is a public partnership. The town is contributing the land. The town is contributing $1 million of ARPA funding, the federal grant, and the town will be very involved in the design, programming, and ultimate framework of the community, but the town will not be on the hook for future maintenance.
Ben, thank you so much. Extremely informative this morning, and we'll look forward to following the project and having you back on down the road when we know a little bit more and you have more to share.
Great. Thank you again for your support.
All right, thank you. Ben Brown with the town of Hilton Head Island. Well, if you've recently checked your property tax reassessments, you might have noticed that there have been some change from previous years. And to shed some light on that with us today, we're pleased to have our Beaufort County Treasurer, Maria Walls, with us to talk to us a little bit about that and other information she wants to share with us today. Maria, great to have you back, and we look forward to hearing from you. We're having audio problems there, Maria.
Oh, can you hear me?
There we go. All good. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Well, you didn't miss much. I was just saying thank you. I'm really excited to be on with you again and look forward to the questions that I know are going to come up, not just for myself, but also Miss Sanders. And so I'm going to go ahead and share. Okay. There we go. Thank you so much. So I want to go ahead and share my screen with all of you this morning. So in the Treasurer's Office, we are so proud to serve Beaufort County. We have established for quite a number of years now, it's our second iteration, vision, mission, and values. Our vision is that we're people serving people, not transactions. From a tax collection standpoint, I can understand why our role is viewed by our constituents as we're just caring about the numbers and the bill in front of us and the payment that needs to happen. And frankly, a lot of government can easily become that sometimes from an employee perspective. We are constantly reminding our team that our vision is we're people serving people, because that's what matters when serving a community. Our mission statement is we're professionals serving with innovation and enthusiasm. Our job is not without challenges, but I think if you talk to myself or any one of our leadership team for more than a few minutes, you know that we are innovative and we're so enthusiastic about what we do. And then lastly is our core values. The first is own everything. It does not mean own all the property in Beaufort County. It's not what it means. It means take ownership for our jobs, for our roles and our service in all ways that we possibly can to make the world around us better. The next is evolve with purpose. I think we all know change happens, it's inevitable, but purposeful change and growth is not. We want to be intentional in the Treasurer's Office about evolving and improving every single day. And then last is serving with passion. This can be a passionless process, but we are passionate about what we do. We're excited about the improvements and engagement that we get to have with our taxpayers. And to summarize what a vision, mission, and value is in total, the vision is what you are constantly striving to be. The mission is the why we are here. And the values are the how we fulfill the why we are here. So I'm very excited to talk a little bit today about what everyone on this call this morning can do to set yourself up for success in the taxation process. I frequently tell customers that if you know who I am, something bad happened, because this should be the easiest thing you ever have to do. So first, let's talk about receiving your bill. The Treasurer's Office is not responsible for the values on your bill. It's not responsible for the millage rate. We are in charge of delivering the information to you and collecting upon it. And of course, if it's not paid, we're responsible for pursuing that bill. So to give you an idea of where our process begins, where the Treasurer's Office begins in the taxation process, I know you're going to hear from Ms. Sanders here shortly. The Assessor's Office is the beginning of the process. We have the Auditor's Office in the middle and the Treasurer's Office at the end. So just a very high-level summary of that separation. So receiving your bill, let me move this just in case that's in your way. First is your mailing address. All notifications are required to be sent by South Carolina state law through the mail. You need to keep your mailing address current. I used to say that if you changed your magazine subscription, you need to change your tax bill. But so many of us don't get that anymore. If your mail receptacle location has changed, I need you to update us. We do not do that automatically. And yes, the post office will continue to forward your mail for a period of time. They will not do that forever. And then your bill may just be returned to us. So please don't rely on mail forwarding. You can update your mailing address on our website, which is BeaufortCountyTreasurer.com anytime. So it's super convenient. You log in and go ahead and update your mailing address. The only exceptions for that are going to be if you have a boat or a car. When you pay your taxes, you get a decal for those. Well, you need to update the state agency, because if you update us at the end of the process, you won't get your decal successfully. So all of that's on our website, very easy to follow. Just want to make sure you're all aware that unless you're signed up for e-billing, please make sure your mailing address is current all the time. So speaking of e-billing, we offer My Beaufort County. It is your one-stop location for all of your property tax payments. You can manage all of your bills and all of your receipts in one place. We will send you frequent reminders, which our users find especially helpful because life is busy. And I mean, I'm sorry, it's easy to forget a tax bill sometimes. You get it, you put it in a drawer, you don't think about it again. We cannot budget-wise afford to send out multiple mailings to the entire county, but for us to send you an alert on My Beaufort County is totally free. So we frequently send alerts reminding you before the deadline that the tax bill still needs to be paid so that we can help you remember to do things on time. There are no additional fees to pay on mybeaufortcounty.com when you're using a check. There is a convenience fee for credit cards, but if you're going to pay with a check anyway, which the majority of our customers do, you will have the ability to pay without any fees whatsoever. And added bonus, you never get to rely on the post office again for your payment. The majority of the customers I speak to during the delinquency process were customers who had the means to pay and intended to pay, but they did not successfully receive their bill, or their payment was not received by our office successfully. We do have some safeguards in place to help with payments that we don't receive, but even the treasurer's office, we have to rely on the post office doing certain things in their process, and they're not consistent all the time, unfortunately. So check out My Beaufort County if you haven't already. We have tons of great feedback on it, and it's a really great opportunity for our customers to stay on top of those bills and those payments. So paying your bill. So you have your bill now. And now what are you going to do to be successful? So the first thing I want you to know is don't pay more than you have to. Our number one call after the bills are mailed is questioning a value or an exemption. Totally get that. I don't want to pay more than I have to either. So go ahead, and I know Miss Ebony is going to talk about this even more, but this applies to any tax bill, not just real property. So your car, your boat, your business, check your value. Value drives the bus when it comes to taxes. It's two pieces, the value of the asset being taxed, and then the millage rate or the tax rate that you're being charged by the governing bodies. So if your value goes up, there could be no tax increases by the local governments. Your value goes up, your taxes are going up. So check your value. If you're questioning the value for your real property, of course, you're going to go to the Beaufort County Assessor's office. If you're questioning personal property, so again, cars, boats, you are going to want to contact the Beaufort County Auditor's Office to appeal your value. And the next thing is check your exemptions. The legal residence exemption, I'm sure all of you watching right now are aware of, and I hope you're getting if you're eligible. Please don't wait until you get your bill to find out that you're not receiving it or you're waiting to apply. Do it as soon as you possibly can with the Beaufort County Assessor's Office, because it can snowball. What most customers don't realize is that although they'll get their tax bill at the end of October, beginning of November, the mortgage companies, the majority of the properties in Beaufort County are mortgaged, they will request those bill amounts as early as the end of September. So if your mortgage company was not expecting you to be taxed at a higher rate, they will increase your escrow. I don't want that to happen to our taxpayers, and it can be avoided by getting a correct with all your exemptions tax bill from the very beginning. And if you're getting the exemption, just be aware that if you have any deed change, make sure that that has not affected your exemptions, because sometimes it does. Okay, so the different areas of the bill that you're going to find this information. The first is going to be right here. Remember, this is your mailing address. Please make sure it's current. Your tax authority group, you just want to make sure that if you get your vehicle tax bill and you live in Bluffton, that doesn't say Beaufort. Shouldn't happen, but sometimes it does. Make sure that your assessment ratio is 4% if you believe you should be getting the legal residence exemption on your home. Miss Ebony is going to talk about this a little bit more, but your appraised value right here, remember, value drives the bus, and when it comes to taxes, and then below that information, you're going to find some exemption value data. Now, if you don't sign up for My Beaufort County and you do put your tax bill in the drawer and forget about it, please make sure you're looking at the bottom left-hand corner of your annual bills, because there are penalties that are applied if you pay late. If you send us a payment a month late for the original amount due, we are going to have to tell you we can't accept it. We're not allowed to accept less than the amount due. And I just don't want you to have this headache. It should be simple. So far we've said, check your mailing address, read your bill, check your value, check your exemptions. If you're doing these very, very basic things, you're already so far ahead of where you could be. So if you don't have a mortgage, I always like to share with viewers that we have our installment payment plan. It's a pay in advance program, kind of like a Christmas program, where you can put money away towards your future annual tax bill. It is offered only on real properties, so dirt and dwellings, as well as mobile homes. The benefits are we're going to send you frequent reminders throughout the year that, hey, it's time to make an installment payment. Now, you do get two options, which is so exciting for me to share. In the past, pre-COVID, the statute was very strict. We'd send you a bill every other month. If you didn't pay it on time, you had to be removed from the program. We received in 2020 special permission from the Department of Revenue to create a completely flexible installment program. And then I was really excited to see in 2021, the legislature passed and made that a permanent thing, which was a great. So you have a choice. We'll send you that reminder bill by email or in paper, and you can pay the amount showing due on there and know you'll get 5 payments throughout the year and you're done. Or you can choose what you pay at any time. You could pay us $5 a week, $10 a month, whatever it is that you can afford, because there are members of our community who want to get ahead, but can't always commit to that 1/5 payment every other month. So it just creates total flexibility for our customers. So with that, I'm trying to leave a lot of time for questions because I had such great ones the last time. We're always here to serve our customers. We are very active on social media. We have an outstanding help center on our website that's interactive. We have a chat. We recently went live with Zendesk. So all of our customer interactions are housed in one customer service module. And the benefit is you don't have to repeat your story or your issue every time you contact our office. We're going to be able to review notes, ensure quality control, and it's going to be a great feature to add to what we already offer for our customers. And I just thought I would share with you who is serving you, because I am a leader, yes, but I am not the person doing all things everywhere. And I am so proud of the team of people who are here in the treasurer's office, who are bought into our vision, mission, and core values and are ready to take care of whatever issue that you have. So with that, Bill, I am happy to answer any questions that might have come through on the chat.
Maria, thank you. And we did have several questions that came through. However, you've answered those questions with your presentation. So obviously you've done a great job anticipating what the public wants to hear. And I also want to compliment you on your enthusiasm and also on your social media. I like seeing that and seeing when your
Thank you.
staff's going to be out of the office or not opening until 9 or 10 because of training. And I think that speaks volumes not only of you, but the entire organization, as well as
Thank you.
people serving people. So thank you.
Thank
you for
you.
being with us. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thank you. Maria had mentioned Ebony Sanders, who is the Beaufort County Assessor, and she had a conflict come up, so she will not be with us this morning. But up next, we do have a key figure at the forefront of innovative workforce housing solutions. He's the president of the Surge Restaurant Group, a major employer here in Southern Beaufort County, and he's leading the charge as the board chairman for the recently formed Coastal Community Development Corporation. It's a unique initiative with a mission to preserve local workforce housing. Alan, you're involved in so much. We're glad you're here to talk to us about this initiative today. So everyone, please welcome Alan Wolf.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate all the support. It's been a big couple weeks with all this stuff happening. Great report from Ben Brown and the town of Hilton Head with all their exciting news as well. So we can share a little bit today. Hopefully you can see my screen there about the Coastal Community Development Corporation. It's an effort that began just about 1 year ago as a result of the Chimney Cove crisis, which was on the verge of, essentially evicting or losing a number of our workforce families who had been given 30-day eviction notices. Fortunately, that didn't happen. The development was put off, but it definitely opened our eyes to the risk of how fragile our workforce balance is for housing. And a group of local board members have come together along with a couple people from Surge who have started to push this to solve it from a community standpoint with a nonprofit approach. And we're in a unique position to do that. I will share a little bit about the mission, which, as Bill pointed out, the first point is to preserve existing natural affordable housing. A lot of us, I think, grew up or came down here and started working in our 20s. I think Ben Brown even said the same thing. Our young professional careers started on Hilton Head. And a lot of those condos and villas that we typically would live in to see our career start to come to life on Hilton Head is no longer available. It's either in the short-term market or it's got, permanent residents down here. In this case, by preserving the existing long-term rentals and returning some of the short-term ones back to the long-term stock, we will have the opportunity to create more housing without having to build new housing necessarily in our first phase. And then we'll focus secondly on redevelopment of existing property and ultimately any new development opportunities across Beaufort and Jasper County as we get down the road. So what we're doing, fortunately, we had a great response from the town of Hilton Head, town council, as well as the finance and administrative committee prior to our request for a grant of $600,000 from the town of Hilton Head from their budget around workforce housing dollars. And what that would do for the nonprofit is allow us to complete a phase one approach of buying 13 units on Hilton Head Island. They're already for sale on the MLS market, and we're just coming in without the profit interest, just bringing the nonprofit side along to buy those 13 units. It would preserve about 26 bedrooms, and house over 50 workers, or more importantly, keep 50 workers housed on Hilton Head where they're working. We have future phases that are going to be coming. And the big news with the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust is we have been one of the applicants of some of the funds that they have available, which is around $2 million for a consideration of local housing and regional housing efforts. So we're looking forward to seeing where that goes. And then our future plans are to utilize more of the altruistic and community investment dollars that are available here on Hilton Head, which I'll explain in just a second. But our next model will be to purchase 25 units on Hilton Head, and then finally work towards a larger opportunity like others have done in the state, specifically, as Ben pointed out, the Greenville Housing Fund, Charleston has done a great job with this, and that's to expand their balance sheet and their reach and ability to do new projects. So that's ultimately where the Coastal Community Development Corporation hopes to be. Why we're doing it? It's the same reason, Bill, that you helped launch the Business Workforce Coalition as a chamber initiative back in 2017. It's because the quality of life is at risk for our residents on Hilton Head, in Bluffton, across Beaufort County, and even into Jasper as the resources become more scarce. So we want to have a higher availability of service, higher quality, and lower cost of services. And we believe that the housing is the critical X factor to making that happen. That is certainly reinforced by the housing needs assessment, which we all saw come out in 2017, which pointed out, over 2,300 units needed by 2027 on Hilton Head. And then, with the town of Bluffton, even over 1,100 units. Scott Weirman, the CEO of the Community Foundation of the Low Country, has been a champion of this effort. And he had the best analogy, which is that's 2,000 units needed on Hilton Head before you account for units that are lost to the short-term market, like the Airbnb and VRBO market. So what we have is a bucket, and every time we put a new unit in, we're still losing them out the leaky bottom of the bucket. And I believe that this nonprofit approach will allow us to make a swift and immediate impact in trying to reverse that trend. So how we're doing it, some of the tools that we're using, number one would be to serve those rents, or our rents will be serving household incomes between 50% of area median income and up to 150%. And similar to what the town of Hilton Head said in Ben's presentation, we identified as a nonprofit that we have needs across the workforce spectrum for household incomes that sometimes exceed that 120% number, all the way up to 150%. We want to make sure that all areas of the workforce are planned for, not just hospitality, but medical services, legal services, and all the other opportunities that we have need for in our workforce. We will have 99-year deed restrictions as covenants on the properties that we purchase, which will tie the rents to a long-term affordability of that same area median income. And as we'll talk about just shortly, there's a home buyer assistance program or a home ownership program that will come out of this. And then those same covenants would remain in place throughout that same 99-year period. Very excited to say that we have an application process that has been blessed from a fair housing law standpoint that will allow us to prioritize workers in the community in which they work. In other words, if you live in Bluffton and you work in Bluffton and you need to find a new place, if the CCDC has a unit for you, you would qualify at the highest because that unit is in Bluffton. And then alternately, if the unit was on Hilton Head, someone who's got a job currently on Hilton Head would prioritize higher. Our goal there is to just have people work in the community that they live in. It's something we've been chasing since our days working on the Business Workforce Coalition in 2018. And then lastly, of course, none of these units that the CCDC owns will be available for short-term rentals. We want to reverse that trend. Quickly on the cost bending strategies, which were key to how we could make our model come to life. There is a safe harbor law that allows for a 0% property tax abatement in the state of South Carolina that mirrors the IRS 501c3 rules. And to do that, to qualify, you have to own units in increments of 50%, up to 80%, and up to 120% of affordability metrics to the AMI. And if we hit those metrics, we would potentially qualify for a property tax exemption on the units that fall into those scales. The second piece we have is the low cost of capital. We've been met with a tremendous support with very small reach so far into the community, the gated communities specifically for altruistic investment. Essentially, the nonprofit will be able to take promissory notes in the form of debt to help with down payment equity. And we'll be able to return a 3% return to those altruistic investors over a 10-year period, allowing us to work towards a refinance option at some point during that 10-year period. And because the island and Beaufort County in general, the properties are worth so much and the rents are so high, it actually allows us to pay that return back. And if the property appreciations continue on that 4.17% track they've been on for the last 20 years, it would allow the CCDC to own the units outright at some point within those first 10 years of those promissory notes coming due. We also have gotten tremendous response from the Community Foundation of the Low Country. Obviously, we've seen help from the municipal side of the town of Hilton Head come in, and then we have local and regional banks that are prepared to participate with reduced rate mortgages, which would have a loan to value of about 60% of each of the properties that we purchase. We have not started on the pavement with our local churches and nonprofits and our businesses, but we certainly see that as our next step now that our documentation is in order. And then we will, of course, always pursue any bonding opportunities, but we have to get some work under us first before we get there. So the progress update from where the CCDC stands today, we were fortunate enough to receive a matching grant of $100,000, a commitment from the Community Foundation of the Low Country. We had already, we were able to match that with an excess. So we matched it with $125,000 by the work of the board members. And that will allow us to fund operations for the first year. It also allowed us to welcome Carletha Frazier, a longtime Bluffton community member who's been just hugely involved in boards and municipal efforts, as well as short-term rental management and real estate acquisitions. So she'll be a great first employee for us. And she started this past Monday. And then quietly, thanks to the private foundation of one of the board members who took a leadership role, we've already been able to close on 3 units on Hilton Head. The first 2 were in Woodlake. They had existing renters in place, which we were able to preserve for the workforce. And then the third unit was in Marshside. It was a 1-bedroom. Person that sold it moved out of town to Tennessee. So we were able to buy that beautiful unit, and we're able to welcome a paralegal who's worked on Hilton Head for the last 2 years, but was living at the extended stay converted to apartments in Bluffton. So she's now living on Hilton Head Island. It was a really nice success story to get somebody to the communities that they work in. So, you know, the way we framed up, Bill, why to partner with the CCDC, and as we start to get this message out there, you know, of course, none of the board members are making any money. This is truly a community effort, and it's going to serve the widest community that we can across Beaufort and Jasper County. But really, it's the immediate preservation of the workforce. Our requirement doesn't request zoning changes. It doesn't request or require 24 months before we can put a shovel in the ground. We can make an impact today, tomorrow, just like we've already begun to do. We also know that growth management is the hottest topic I've noticed across Beaufort County, certainly on Hilton Head and Bluffton as well. Well, this strategy supports growth management. We don't need new infrastructure. There's already infrastructure to support these units because they already exist. At least in our first 3 phases, we want to buy existing properties and just return them to the long-term market. Of course, the 99-year covenant is a big deal. We've told stories about what we learned from Aspen in our Business Workforce Coalition research days about 5 years ago, that their 25-year deed restriction wore off. And the next thing you know, in the early 2000s, all those homes went to market rate. They lost the asset of workforce housing, and there was a giant income jump for all the people that had bought the units back in the 80s. So we look at a longer term, which is that 99-year covenant period. And then lastly, we really believe we've got a home ownership option that's going to make it a great chance for people who are originally renting with us to earn equity towards a purchase. And ultimately, we want those folks to earn out of the AMI restrictions that they're in from a rental standpoint. And that will be the catalyst for putting someone on a path to the ownership of the villa or the single family home or the condo that they're renting in, or another one from our pool. So truly is a community solution. We look forward to the Chamber of Commerce continuing to lead the way with us on reaching out to the full wider community, and I appreciate everyone's time. Happy to answer any questions.
Alan, thank you. And you and your board have moved mountains in a very short amount of time. I know to you it probably doesn't feel like a short amount of time, but all that you all have accomplished is just fascinating. So, and we thank you for that. One listener wrote in something I want you to clarify. Was asking about the 13 homes that you have for sale, and I don't think that I'll just let you clarify that.
They're not for. I mean, we don't have them for sale. The point is, there was about 600 units on Hilton Head between the price of $200,000 to $300,000 sold last year on Hilton Head alone. About 600 units. So the CCDC has targeted purchasing 13 units in that range between $200,000 and $300,000. The fact is, on the MLS, those units come and go. They trade in all the different communities we all see and drive by on a daily basis. So we have already purchased 3, and we'll be looking to purchase 10 more units to round out our 13 unit phase 1 model. And that's exactly what the grant from the town of Hilton Head would help us do, along with some altruistic investment that we have lined up from private individuals that are willing to make an impact.
All right, Alan, thank you for that. Next question is coming. Thank you for clarifying that. Next question is coming from Jonathan. And Jonathan is asking, how would a business get involved, and where do potential residents get more information about the available units?
So I've got the website up right now. You know, being that we have 3 units under ownership now, we just got our 501c3 application back in May. So we have, done some work, like you said, Bill, pretty quickly. We haven't opened up that application process. The application is available online, but we haven't opened up because we need to go out and purchase these additional units. Then, of course, if there's already workers there, we're going to make sure to intend to keep them there. And if we have a vacant unit, then we will have those applications be considered for someone to live in. I would encourage you to go to the website, ccdc-sc.org, and submit an info request. You can contact us through the website. I had a homeowner do that, actually, that is trying to sell a couple of units at one of the communities here on Hilton Head just yesterday. If you're a business owner, please reach out to us through there or to me directly, because we have Carletha Frazier, our new program manager, beginning to come out and meet with businesses. We have a really interesting approach there, which is, and it came from Dave Wetmore, who's helped us so much with this model. He's one of the residents at Long Cove, and he was able to put together the idea that, hey, if Long Cove wants to help solve this for the Long Cove employees, then how about they buy 2 units, but they get a preference for 1? And it would be the same thing if Surge or Giuseppe's or the hospital wanted to invest. They would bring the down payment capital towards one of these units being purchased, towards 2 units, and they would have a preference on going for one of them. And so you're solving it in 1-to-1 ratio for yourself as a business and then also for the community. So we think that's a big piece, but we're just getting ready to come out and start to share that information with business owners now.
All right, Alan, I know you're running late for a meeting. Just if one more question here and we'll let you run. And this is coming from Jennifer again, and she is asking, how will the properties be managed for the basics like repairs?
Great question. I should have pointed out that we were smart enough to work with Hilton Head long-term rentals right out of the gate on those first 3 units. And like all the people that you see working with us, everyone's helping out. So we've been able to get some specialized rates for nonprofits and all of our services. And as we talk to these long-term rental companies, we want to make sure they're doing their normal management business. That's what they're great at. So the CCDC would not be doing the management of the units. We'll outsource that. They handle all the rent collections. They handle all the repairs. We have built into our budget, a repairs budget that is, in excess of 12% annually. So we feel like it checks the boxes in terms of what the rental companies have told us we should prepare for. And then of course, when we come to purchasing a unit, we're under no duress to have to buy a unit. So if it's not in the shape that we need to, or the price that would allow us to make the repairs necessary, then we would just move on to another unit. So we can still be particular and plan to do so to avoid any cost of repairs we don't see coming. I guess the last point is we're taking very careful work to assess the regimes of each one of the communities on Hilton Head that we're looking at because of the rise in insurance costs. In fact, just today, our program manager is reaching out to regimes to understand the cost curve that they've seen over the last 18 months and what's predicted to ensure that we have the funding in line and correct to handle those increases as they come.
Alan, I told you that that was going to be the last question, but I'm
No,
going to
that's
have
fine.
one
Yeah,
more
go
for
ahead.
you. I'll
It's
do
the
one
next
more.
one. I just don't want to miss the warm biscuits. It's a big deal.
Sam is asking, Sam says to ask Alan if he will come back on in the very near future to provide additional information, and congratulations on a wonderful project.
Well, we would like to do that because that'll mean we have the ball continuing to roll in the right direction. So we appreciate it, and we'll look forward to any support that people like Sam can give as we go back to the town of Hilton Head to hopefully get our second vote in favor of that grant opportunity. And I bet you by the time we get there, we'll have more to report about our private initiatives to raise altruistic capital as well.
Alan, thanks for your leadership in this project, and not only in this project, but so many other things you do on behalf of Hilton Head Island and Bluffton in the region. So we appreciate you. Thanks for being with us today, and hope you didn't miss too much of your meeting.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
All right, that was Alan Wolf, president of the Surge Group. Such an exciting project that he and his board are involved in. I'm going to close today the same way I started, and just announcing once again that for the 7th consecutive year that Hilton Head Island is again ranked the #1 island in the U.S. by the readers of Condé Nast Traveler. Pretty big honor there, and beating out some really, really fine other islands. Also, another shout out to the Savannah Hilton Head International Airport, also being named the #1 airport in the country, and that's for the 3rd straight year. And then lastly, we'll do shout outs to some other top resorts, being Montage, Palmetto Bluff for their ranking, as well as the Sea Pines Resort, the Omni Resort, and the Palmetto Dunes Resort, which are all taking top honors among the best resorts in the South, and then also a couple as the best resorts in the world. We're living in a terrific place. Enjoy it, take care of it, and thank you for joining us today. We'll look forward to talking with you again soon.